I'm thinking that I'm thinking that these are not your average housewives that we're going to talk about today. And so we are going to do a little, I probably should have told you before, we're going to take a little quiz throughout this time together. You can grab a pen and a paper if you want to. It's multiple choice. Originally, I was thinking that you could give Kristen, if you can name the person before, but you know what? I trust y'all. If you can, I'll give you a couple of seconds before. If you can write down that person's name before the name comes up, you'll get 2 extra bonus points at the end. Not that we know what we're going to do with the points yet, but hey, it's just for fun. And we are going to have time to talk about the people along the way, and please add to the conversation. And I just want you to know ahead of time, my little disclosure here is I know there's a lot more interesting ladies in quotes, right? Because they're not, are they really ladies, that I found that we could do today. So, but I just had to pick some and go with it. So our main goal is to just have a good time. So our first person today is this lady, and I'll give you a minute to come up with her name.
Ma Barker.
Yeah, you got her. Her name is Ma Barker. She was around from 1873 to 1935. What was she best known as? Don't answer out loud. I'm going to give you a second to write down the answer on your paper there, if you want to do that. Everybody ready for the answer? Sure you are.
Yes.
She was a gang leader. Everybody get that?
Yep.
Yes.
Nope.
Nope. So here's just a little bit about her. She was oops, I'm trying to move you people around so I can see. She had 4 sons, Herman, Lloyd, Arthur, Fred, and she raised her kids to be criminals. I mean, she raised them that way. And so the gang rose to infamy. They became FBI's public enemy #1. They did all kinds of robberies, murders, kidnappings throughout the Midwest and through the 1930s. And she helped plan all the activities, but she never went on any of them. She just sent her boys out to do it all. And, you know, they captivated the press and the public, and there's all kinds of movies about them. But in 1927, one committed suicide. And shortly thereafter, the other 3 sons ended up in jail, and Kate was by herself. But then when her son Fred got out in 1931, they started up again, and she sent him off. He had a friend that when he got out, that they went off and did stuff. And then, but the real claim to fame is that they met their deaths in the longest shootout in FBI history. It lasted, I think, a day and a half. It just kept going and going and going. And it was actually, and I can't say the name, Okalaka, whatever, in Florida, right outside of Ocala. And the house is still there today where that happened. So did anybody know anything else about Ma Barker that they want to share? No. All right. Okay, you know who this is. I'll give you a second. I think most of you should know this lady. Are we ready for the reveal?
Bonnie.
Yeah.
From Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie Parker. Yes,
oh, Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Yeah, Bonnie.
Parker.
Yes.
Now here's on the left-hand side, you see, what did this woman do? And write the answer on your paper. Don't say it out loud. It will be revealed in a minute. But really think about what those answers are, because it's almost a trick question. Are we ready for the reveal?
Rob the bank.
No.
She killed innocent.
Well, she did that too, but
she smuggled a gun into prison.
Yeah, I would have said all of the above.
You would have said all of the above. Now, this is the interesting part that I discovered while I was doing stuff. Half of the legendary duo of Bonnie and Clyde, she met Clyde in 1930, was sent to, and he went to jail soon after on burglary charges, and she smuggled in a gun that he was able to use to escape. And she partnered with him during the Depression in what became a 21-month-long crime spree, and the 2 stole cars and robbed gas stations, small towns, and all that. However, the legend says they both did the crimes, but Clyde never let Bonnie actually take part in any of the crimes.
Oh,
She
wow.
was in all the pictures. She's in the movies you show her, but she never was allowed to take part in any of the crimes. And then they finally were, after the 21 months, they were killed when somebody told, and I'm going to show this video, hopefully.
It ended here, just after 9 a.m. on a quiet Louisiana highway, in an explosion
You all
of
can
metal
see
and
it and hear it,
flesh.
right?
The violent crime spree snuffed out, a 2-year love affair ended, where destiny said it must.
That's why they died together. They couldn't find them apart from each other.
She had just been laid off from a Dallas cafe. He was dabbling in petty crime.
He told folks that when they met, it was love at first sight. They were inseparable for the next 2 weeks. Clyde was sleeping on her mama's couch, and he got picked up by the sheriff's department. They showed up.
Clyde talks Bonnie into smuggling a gun into jail. He breaks out, but is soon recaptured, and ends up sentenced to 2 years in the notorious East Ham prison.
Clyde was raped by a man named Ed Crowder.
A man he later murders.
The story is Clyde fractured his skull with a galvanized pipe.
After leaving East Ham, Clyde vows to never go to prison again.
He said he was running, and that's how it started.
He reconnects with Bonnie, and the violence begins. But not with her.
Bonnie never robbed or killed anybody because Clyde wouldn't take her. If he went to do a job, he went with somebody else. He left her. She never walked into a bank or a store or anywhere and said, "Stick 'em up."
In fact, Perry Carver says Bonnie never fired a gun at anyone. So these famous pictures were just two young lovers playing around. But the fun and games end when Clyde wrecks his car. Bonnie is severely burned.
30% of her body, but her left leg was mangled. It was burnt to the bone.
Then the shootouts begin.
Dexfield, she was shot in the stomach. In Sowers, Texas, they were both shot through both legs. There wasn't much left of her legs when she died. She couldn't walk. She either had to hobble or hop on one leg. People in this area that knew them, that interacted with them, said they had a stench to them. Said they could have got right out of the shower or a bath or whatever and been clean, but they still had a stench of infection. I mean, they were really the Walking Dead. That they were inseparable. Clyde would have, if he didn't love her, he would have kicked her to the curb. If she didn't love him, she'd have left him.
2 days before her violent death,
She told Percy, she said, "Percy, I'm going to have to die because of my love for a man."
at 9:15 in the morning, with the wildflowers in full bloom off Highway 154, it was finished.
There was only one Bonnie and Clyde, and that's because of what they went through in 25 months, their commitment. It was a love story. I mean, it was just a violent love story.
Oh, stop. So, what do you think after watching that? Do you think she was really a criminal? What do you think?
I don't think so.
Don't
I think
either.
I think she was just a crazy chick in love with a guy.
Yeah, me too.
The downfall of many a good woman.
Right? Notorious, yes, right? I mean, notorious because everybody knows who she is and they all have this picture in their head, but not necessarily.
But I would think that's aiding and abetting a criminal. I mean,
Sure.
just by so
Oh,
just,
yeah. Yep. But hey, I did prison ministry for a long time, and there's a lot of women in there that took the hit for the guy
Wow.
because they
Yeah.
loved him, So anyways, I have to figure out, I just might come back on again, but I'm going to try to get past it.
It ended
Hey,
here.
how come there it is. No. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, so does anybody else have anything about Bonnie before we move on? No. Okay. So take a look at this lady. You may or may not know that face. If you've been around for a while, you might have seen it in the news or something. If you know her name, write it down. And I will reveal it. Does anybody have any idea about her now that they've seen their picture? I mean, her name?
Margie Velma Barfield.
Margie Velma Barfield. You take a look over here and see what thing you think she might be best known for.
C. We think D.
I'm thinking C. Oh, it was C.
C,
Okay.
it is. Yes. Yes, it is C. I know it. You think she looks like a drug trafficker, I think, anyway. But she was actually born in South Carolina, and when she saw financial differences between her and her classmates, she started stealing then. And then after she married and had kids, she was having issues, so she started taking Librium and Valium, going to multiple doctors to get prescriptions, which is kind of funny because it's not far from the drug thing, is it? And after a fight with her husband, her home mysteriously burnt down, and that began the run of her killings. And she was convicted of 1 murder, but eventually she confessed to 6 murders in total. But what makes her different from a lot of the other murderers that you come across is that she was the first woman in the United States to be executed after the 1976 resumption of the capital punishment, and the first since 1962. And she was also the first woman executed by lethal injection, and this was in Raleigh, in our central prison here in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's why I wondered if you guys knew of her. Did anybody ever hear of her before, or remember this happening?
No.
No.
I think this is the first I've ever heard of her or seen her.
Yeah.
Which
she's
is
got
weird.
She's got those 80s glasses on, right? I mean, look, and it was 1984 when she was executed, so it wasn't even really technically that long ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Can you put the back up again?
Can I put the what up?
Her
the narrative?
description. Yeah, the narrative, just for a few minutes or.
Sure. Well, and I have the whole thing that I'm gonna end up sharing at at some point, anyways. If anybody wants to pick through it after or use it for anything, but I think she has that grandma look about her, but apparently she wasn't a lovey-dovey grandma. So, all right.
Wow.
Anything else on her? Shall we keep moving?
Yeah.
All right. How about this woman? Now, she's obviously from an older era. Does anybody think about who she might be? And I think Faye knows this one.
Yes.
She does. So give yourself an extra 2 points, honey, because you know this one. Man. Okay. Here comes the big reveal. Her name is Mary Surratt.
Oh, conspirator.
Yep.
Lincoln.
Yep.
Conspirator, final answer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her family lives in Denton, North Carolina, which is really close here. They have a hosiery mill, Surratt Hosiery.
She had this tavern with her husband where they welcomed Confederate soldiers, and I have a video on her. When her husband died, she moved to Washington, opened the boarding house, and that became the meeting place for John Wilkes Booth and his conspirators. And she got entangled in the plot to kill Abraham Lincoln. and she's thought to have regular conversations with Booth about his plans and assisted in concealing the weapons. And the thing is, she was the first woman to be sentenced to death by the United States, and she was hanged with the others in 1865. But there's quite a controversy surrounding her guilt, and many believe that she was innocent. And we're going to watch this little video, and then you can kind of say if you think she was innocent or not.
Americans are always intrigued with a murder mystery, and the Lincoln assassination is one of the best murder mysteries you could ask for. Mary Surratt, if it were not for the Lincoln assassination, would not be in any history book whatsoever. She was a typical middle-class Southern sympathizer woman. She was educated shortly in a Catholic boarding school in Alexandria, Virginia, and then she married at age 17, quickly became the mother of 3 children, and she and her husband ran the 300-acre plantation that we now have converted to a museum, and they ran it as both farmland. He had a tavern within his house. He had a public dining room for travelers. He ran the post office. So he literally had the corner on the market at this intersection, which is now Clinton, Maryland. She became widowed in 1862 in the middle of the Civil War. Because of her financial situation, by the fall of 1864, when a new Maryland state constitution outlawed slavery in the state, she was forced to give up these large holdings, move into a house that she owned in Washington, D.C., and start a boarding house. Her oldest son, had run away to join the Confederate Army. Her youngest son was a Confederate courier. And in the fall of 1864, she was introduced to John Wilkes Booth and became, either knowingly or unknowingly, a member of his conspiracy, first to kidnap President Lincoln, and a conspiracy that turned later to assassination. She actually had been here a few hours before the assassination doing the bidding of John Wilkes Booth. She claimed that she came here on private business. However, she brought with her Booth's field glasses or binoculars to be hidden here. He asked her to deliver a package tied up in paper. She claimed she did not know what was in that package, but she told her tenant down here that he should hide them and have the shooting guns ready for parties that would call that night. And of course, the parties that called that night at about midnight were John Wilkes Booth and his accomplice, David Harrell. They were here only about 5 minutes before heading south to Dr. Mudd's house. However, that was very damaging testimony against her when delivered to the military court. Mrs. Surratt never saw the light of day after having been arrested and questioned. She spent 2 weeks in the old Capitol Prison in Washington, D.C., before being transferred to the penitentiary on the grounds of the Washington Arsenal, where her trial and execution would take place. It was a brutally hot day on July the 7th when the 4 convicted felons marched to the gallows on the grounds of the Washington Arsenal and met their fate. We still cannot determine, number one, was she completely innocent? Was she completely guilty? Did they have the right to try her based on the rules of law and the laws of war at that particular time? And it's a split decision between historians. Most of the people agree that she had to have had some knowledge of at least the kidnap plot, but was her role so severe that she deserved the fate that she got? And as long as it's a question mark, we enjoy the debates, and we also enjoy the visitation down here, and the true answer will never be known to my thinking. It's somewhere in the gray stage between black and white.
So what do you think?
Hard to
Guilty,
tell.
not guilty?
It's
I
hard
think
to
she was
tell.
I think she was innocent of the knowing about the Lincoln assassination. I think she probably knew that about the previous plot to actually kidnap, because they planned that in her boarding house. But
Guilty by association.
Guilty by
Yeah.
association. But did she deserve to hang?
no,
Well, that's another story.
I know. I know.
her family actually wrote a book that, I mean, it's not published for other people. They just wrote it for their family with letters and stuff from different family members. And because I used to do business with the Surratt Hosiery Mill, Irving, which is her great, great, great grandson, he actually gave me a copy of the book. And there's a lot of interesting things that the family brings up that, that went on during that time. But basically it portrays her as someone who's running a boarding house and she's trying to make the most of it. Her younger son brings the conspirators in there, and she actually does not know what they're doing in the beginning, but he's bringing in boarders, and she needs boarders in order to support her daughter and her and, her family. So, I don't know. There's a lot of things in there that makes you wonder. And it also talks about where the youngest son went and how he disappeared, because they were looking for him to hang him. And he ran all the way to Italy, to Vatican City, and became one of the guards guarding the Pope, and was recognized. And they told him that his mother was going to be hanged, and he couldn't get back in time to stop the hanging. So that he could take her place, but he did try, supposedly. But yeah, there's a lot of things that make you wonder about this case. I think they were too quick to hang her.
Yeah, I think they were too quick to hang her, but I don't know if she was exactly innocent,
Yeah.
That's my opinion too. Is there a lot of things in American history that we've been taught over and over again that aren't necessarily true?
Yeah.
It's a whole nother thing that we could do sometime. Anybody else have any input? Oh, I think you're muted, Pam. There you go. I know you're talking.
Stacy was asking, did something else happen in the prior, not the last person, but the person before that on July 7th? She was like, it's a cursed day. So she was asking, I can't remember which person you had before this one, but anyway.
Oh, Velma Barfield, was she the one that, did she get her lethal injection then? She might have.
I can't remember. Stacy was wondering.
We'll have to go back and look.
Okay. She said she thought it was July 7th.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
I think Mary Surratt was hung in July too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it was only wait a minute. Hold on. Now you got me curious. Velma. No, it doesn't have the date on hers. I don't know. It was her.
July
Maybe
the
it was
7th.
Mary Surratt. Mary Surratt.
Yeah, maybe it was because she was maybe it was because we had her thing up and then they said it in the video because you heard it twice. I read it and then it was it. That might have been it. So,
Okay.
Do you know this person? You probably should think about it for a minute before I pull her name up. I believe she's still alive. Ready? Here we go.
Patty Hearst.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I should have known that.
I know. Oh, wrong game, Faye.
Yeah, really.
It looks like such an older picture though. Like that
It
wasn't
is.
that long ago.
Yeah.
That looks like maybe like from the 20s or something.
It does, doesn't it? It's because it
Yeah.
was a newspaper. It was a newspaper clipping thing. So, what did she do of these four things over here? What is she best known for? So,
she held her family hostage. She held her family
joined the
hostage.
kidnappers' crimes.
Yep, joined in the kidnappers' crime. They robbed a bank and stuff.
She joined in her kidnappers crime, and I did not do video for her, but she was the daughter of the wealthy newspaper publisher Of course, you've heard of the Hearst family, I'm sure. She was kidnapped in 1974 by this I don't know, what is it, Symbionese? Symbionese Liberation Army, a small American leftist group that demanded that her family give $70 of food to every needy person from Santa Rosa to Los Angeles. And so her father complied, giving $2 million worth of food, but they weren't satisfied. They asked for $6 million more, but the family said they're only going to do it if their daughter got released. And they didn't see their daughter until 2 months later when a surveillance camera caught her participating in an armed robbery at a bank. And I vaguely remember those videos from TV news when I was a kid. Then the audio tapes of her speaking emerged, revealing that she'd become a part of the SLA and she actively participated in the criminal activity in California, even extorting an estimated $2 million from her own father. And after 19 months in the SLA, she was captured by the FBI. She claimed that she was brainwashed. She was sentenced to 7 years in jail, but after 21 months, her sentence was commuted by President Carter. She was released. She returned to normal life, became an actress, and her case has been studied by many psychologists. And they think that she suffered that Stockholm syndrome, which hostages think positively about their captors as a result of their captors acting compassionately toward them after the frightening experience. But what do you think? Do you think she really had that Stockholm syndrome, or you think she just was out partying with the people she was with?
She was very young. Sorry.
Yeah.
Liz
thinks she had it. Liz thinks she had Stockholm syndrome.
Because of her age.
Yes.
Yeah, because of her age. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just have to think that before that, I don't think she would have ever done anything like that had those people not interrupted her life and taken her. And they treated her brutally in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, she was not treated with kid gloves at all in the beginning. So I kind of think she suffered from that too.
Yeah.
You're right. What about you, Kristen? You think so?
Yeah, I agree too. I think the age had quite a bit to do with it. And wasn't she with them for quite a while?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, something just comes to mind that they had her in a closet or
they did.
like bound in a closet or something. So
Super
it could have been one of those things where she was like, well, if I don't, do what they tell me to do, they're going to kill me or, torture me. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Anything else on Patty Hearst before we keep going? How are we doing? Okay. So here's one for you. I don't know if you recognize her at all. You're looking at her face and you're going, oh, I've seen that face on something. She has a familiar looking face.
That's my sweet Aunt Rose.
Right?
She looks so sweet,
She does. She has that look.
Is that Blanche? Or
she looks like a spy to me, whoever she is.
Oh, she could be.
Is that or?
Is it who?
Is it an older picture? Blanche Taylor Moore?
Blanche Taylor Moore. I don't know.
No.
Okay. She's a Black Widow killer with arsenic.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Nope, it isn't. It is Mildred Gillers. She was also known as Axis Sally during World War II. So what do you think she was over here?
She was probably a spy.
Spy.
That's traitor or a spy?
She was a traitor. Yeah. She was an American actress. She went to Germany and became their propaganda voice during World War II.
Oh, gosh.
Axis Sally was a generic name given to women radio personalities who broadcast English language propaganda on behalf of the Axis powers during World War II. And she was, included her, she was a German American who broadcast for Germany. She was born in Portland, Maine, where Phil was born, and her family moved to Ohio when she was a kid. And while she started out being apolitical, in 1942, the program changed to a new show called Home Sweet Home. And I love these names that she acquired among her GI audience, including the Bitch of Berlin.
Wow.
Berlin Babe, Olga, and Sally. But the one most common was Axis Sally because she used that Sally to describe herself. And her last broadcast was in 1945. 2 days before the Nazis surrendered, and she was arrested for treason and received a sentence of 10 to 30 years in 1948. She was paroled in 1961, and this was the part that really cracks me up. She became a kindergarten teacher.
Oh my gosh.
Who would want that? But anyway, here's a really short video of her.
This is Berlin calling. And I'd just like to say that when Berlin calls, it pays to listen.
And now a page from our Sunday morning almanac. May 6th, 1945, 67 years ago today. The day a radio announcer Americans called Axis Sally made her last propaganda broadcast on behalf of Germany just 2 days before Germany's surrender.
At the sound of the gong, it was exactly 9 o'clock Eastern Wartime.
Sally's real name was Mildred Gillers. Born and raised in Maine, Gillers acted in productions at Ohio Wesleyan University and was an occasional Broadway actress in the 20s before seeking her fortune overseas, first in France and then in Germany. While most Americans fled that nation at the start of World War II, Mildred Gillers stayed on and became the Nazis' shortwave English language voice.
Good evening, women of America. Well, you know, as time goes on, I think of you more and more. I can't somehow seem to get you out of my head. You women in America, waiting for the one you love, waiting and weeping in the secrecy of your own room, thinking of the husband, the son, or the brother who is being sacrificed by Franklin D. Roosevelt, perishing on the fringes of Europe.
Arrested and returned to the United States after the war, Gillers was convicted of treason in 1949 and sentenced to prison. She was unapologetic about her broadcasts, saying she was a pawn of the Nazis and of her fiancé, a German Foreign Service officer.
And in a moment, Axis Sally will come through the main gate.
Paroled in 1961, she returned to Ohio, where she would live out her life as a kindergarten music teacher.
Wow.
What do you
I thought she
think?
would have been teaching history in the making. She should have been teaching.
You're right. You're right.
I don't think they did background checks back then.
They
I guess
must.
not.
That was my first thought too. No background checks there, right? Oh, it's kind of interesting to think that back in the 60s, it could have been anybody teaching the kids, you know, and we never thought anything of it. But, you know, and you have to wonder if, well, kind of like if you were a Nazi sympathizer and now you've got a Nazi sympathizer teaching your kids, what are they teaching your kids, right?
Right.
And it's kind of like if you had a communist person teaching your kids, they're teaching them about communism. If you have during the Civil War, if somebody from the North came down to the South and started teaching, what are they teaching your kid, right? Pretty interesting to think of.
Teacher, that helped.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else about her? Keep going. Keep going. Who is this woman best known as? Do we know that face? This is another face that you might have seen somewhere around the state. I think. Yeah, I think it is. You're looking at her saying, too old for me to remember. So I will pull up the name. It's Rose O'Neill Greenhow. You can tell by her dates she was during the Civil War. So what was she best known as? Think about it for a second.
Bye.
Conspirator?
Conspirator or spy or bank robber or murder. Here we go.
All of the above.
Yeah,
She was
all of the above.
Spy. No, she was a spy. And I did have a video for her, but I took it out because Phil said it was too long and boring. And I kind of agreed with him. And I couldn't find another one that was really good, so I just didn't do it. But I'll tell you her story anyway. Her story is really interesting. And let me preface it by telling you, I went to the national like the national park at Fort Fisher, and they have a little museum-y thing in there, and that's where I first learned about her. And I saw a thing about her there. And then later on, a couple years later, we went to the International Civil Rights Museum in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and they had a whole display on spies during the Civil War, and she was highlighted in there. So I thought it was pretty cool. I've seen stuff on her twice, and her story's pretty interesting. She was a Maryland native. She lived in Washington with her 4 kids, and her husband was deceased and wealthy and well-connected in the capital. And she was a floozy, and she used her influence to aid the Southern cause. And she worked with Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Jordan. She established a spy network in Washington, and she picked up a lot of the secrets by dating all the bigwigs and getting them drunk and getting them to talk. You know how it is, loose lips sink ships, right? So the federal authorities soon learned of the security leaks, and the trail led to her house, and she was placed under house arrest. And other suspected female spies, because she was sending people out too, they were soon arrested, and they put them all in there. And the house was nicknamed Fort Greenhow because they still put all the spies, and they did them all house arrest in one place. But they still managed to produce information for the rebels. And part of the way they did that was by sending their kids out, because back in those days when you got arrested, especially house arrest, you had your kids with you. So she sent her kids out with messages and stuff for the rebels. After 5 months, she and her daughter, Little Rose, were transferred to the old Capitol prison in Washington, and where she was incarcerated till 1862. And then she went into exile in the South. But then she went over to England for a couple of years, and she decided to return to the Confederacy to contribute more to the war effort, probably to make more money, because she was making money off of this. And her and her daughter were on board the British blockade runner when it was intercepted off of Cape Hatteras and run aground near Fort Fisher. And she was carrying Confederate dispatches and $2,000 in gold, which doesn't seem like much, but back then that was a lot of gold. And insisting that she be taken ashore, she boarded a small lifeboat that overturned in the rough surf, and the weight of the gold pulled her under, and she ended up drowning and her body washed ashore the next morning, and she was given a hero's funeral and buried in Wilmington, wrapped in the Confederate flag.
Now that you mentioned the gold, I do recall this. I forget what I was watching. It was just a few days ago that she was so greedy, she went down with her gold and didn't want to let it go.
Yeah. And what about it? I don't know what happened to her kid. I never really heard what happened to her kid. Did her kid make it on the boat? Or did the boat overturn and her kid swam back? I don't know. I never heard what happened to the kid in any of the things I went to.
I didn't hear that either. All I heard was just she went down with her gold.
So here's a question for you. If she was given a hero's funeral, wrapped in a Confederate flag, and at the time she was doing these things to help her country or her people, was she really a criminal?
Depend who had lost the war.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
She's probably a criminal to the Yankees, but not a criminal to the Confederates, right?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking too. I mean, she's a hero's funeral. But again, how much of a hero are you if your money's worth more than getting the dispatch to your army, right? Because that was part of the deal. Anything else on Rose? No. Okay. How about this woman? Do you know her?
Oh, I know
Do
her.
you know her?
Yeah. Yeah.
You do?
Yes.
Tanya?
Y'all know her, don't
Tanya
you?
Harding, yeah.
Tanya Harding, yes.
That
And
would
what
be
did she?
D.
It would be D?
Yes.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Well, no, C.
C.
Okay.
C.
Yeah, C.
Yeah, let's see.
C.
Having a rival injured before the competition. And she was I didn't know all these things about her. You knew the skating thing, but I didn't know she was a retired boxer, and she does reality TV personality. That picture of her is actually when she did Dancing with the Stars. She was born in Oregon. She spent most of her life training, dropped out of high school to devote time to the sport. And she climbed the ranks, and she won Skate America competition 2 years in a row. And she was the U.S. champion 1991 and 94, but they took away her 94 title. She was a 91 silver medalist, so she was good, obviously. She two-time Olympian, two-time Skate America champion, first American woman and second in the world to successfully land a triple axel in competition. But in January 1994, she was caught up in the controversy when her ex-husband orchestrated the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. Both women competed in the February 94 Olympics, where Kerrigan won the silver medal and Harding finished 8th. And she had to accept a plea bargain when she pleaded guilty to conspiracy to hinder the prosecution. And as a result, the Skating Association banned her for life. So she could never go back to skating. And she's been about a lot of films. I have a very short news clip of her.
And now a page from our Sunday Morning Almanac, January 6th, 1994, 25 years ago today, the day the genteel sport of figure skating became a media circus. For that was the day an assailant clubbed Nancy Kerrigan on the leg as she left the ice after practice at the U.S. Olympic trials in Detroit.
Someone was running by me and he just whacked me with this long black stick.
The attack plunged Kerrigan's Olympic dreams into doubt and focused suspicion on rival skater Tanya Harding.
It's been a
long week.
Within days, Harding's estranged husband, Jeff Gillooly, was arrested, along with 3 other men. Harding herself, on the other hand, proclaimed her innocence.
I may have some bad points about me, but overall, I think I'm a pretty good person.
After weeks in the media spotlight, Kerrigan and Harding faced off at the Olympics in Lillehammer, Norway. Despite her injuries, Kerrigan won silver, while Harding, who had problems with her skate laces, finished well out of the running.
I'm accepting a plea of guilty.
Harding later pleaded guilty to hindering prosecution, receiving 3 years probation and a $100,000 fine. In a final blow, the U.S. Figure Skating Association banned her for life. The story lives on in our national memory, most recently in the 2017 film I, Tanya, with Margot Robbie in the starring role.
Just send me to jail and then I can still skate.
Just
send me to jail and then I can still skate.
I've given you my decision.
It's a story skating fans hope will be told and retold only on the screen and never again on the ice.
Whoops. So what do you think? Do you have anything to do with it?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, of course.
What makes you say that? Is it her face? Is it her attitude?
I've actually watched that I, Tanya. It's actually on Hulu, which is a good documentary because I mean, I knew about her in the past. She wasn't that interesting to me, but it's just one of those things you watch just to kill time. But she actually had a rough life. Like
Yes, she did.
her mom was very just pushed her to be as good as she could be, and was kind of, I don't necessarily say abusive, maybe emotionally, but her husband was really abusive to her. And you know, if you have some time and if you've got Hulu, or I believe Hulu, Amazon Prime, watch the I, Tanya. It kind of you kind of feel sympathetic to her somewhat. Not that what she did was right, but you know, her life was a little crazy.
But Kristen, can I just interject there? Do
Sure.
not ever kill time. You never know when you're going to use it. Do not kill time.
Well, I take that back. It was just one of those things where you try to find something to watch and it kind of popped up. It was an interesting movie, to say the least.
I saw it when it first came out. Yes, it was interesting.
Yeah. Just I never knew that about her.
Yeah, a lot of those moms that are like gymnastic moms and beauty pageant moms, they are really rough, and those kids do go through a lot. You have to admit. Anybody else? Whoops, I did it again. Go on. There we go. Now, do you know who this is? You probably don't.
That's Aunt Fran. Man, I mean, this woman
They're
looks
all
so
your
sweet.
relatives. They're all your relatives.
I know, gosh. But she looks so sweet. Aunt Fran, always a smile.
No, it's not Aunt Fran. Anybody else? I got to pull it up because I don't think you'll know. Her name is Rosie Ruiz. 1953. She just died in 2019. What do you think she's famous for? Killing children, cheating in a marathon, having her opponent injured, selling sperm she collected from unsuspecting men.
Probably
Oh
killing the
God.
children. She looks like a child killer. She doesn't look so sweet to me.
She looks like a child killer. Anybody else?
Knowing Aunt Fran, it might be Dee.
That's what I'm thinking too. It just kind of stands out there. She looks like she would be that type.
Well, you guys, I'm glad that sucked you in because you know what? She cheated in a marathon.
Oh, wow.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. You'd be concerned that you were the result of that sperm. Is that it?
Oh God.
She was born in Cuba, grew up in Florida, moved to New York City in the 70s, and in 1979 she qualified for the New York City Marathon and was credited with a time of 2:56, 11th woman overall, enough to qualify her for the Boston Marathon, which is the big one. And her application to the New York Marathon arrived after the cutoff date, but she received a special dispensation because she told them that she claimed she was dying of brain cancer, which was not true. And then in 1980, at the 1980 Boston Marathon, she appeared to win the female category with a time of 2:31. Her time would have been the fastest female time in Boston Marathon history, as well as the third fastest female ever recorded in any marathon. However, the suspicions mounted almost from the beginning, and other observers noticed that she wasn't panting, she wasn't coated in sweat, her thighs were less than lean and muscular that they would have been for a world-class runner. And it was discovered that she did not run the course, but she took the subway and got off a half a mile from the finish line. And after the Boston Marathon snafu, the New York City Marathon officials investigated her run, and they also concluded that she didn't run the entire course, so they retroactively disqualified her from the race.
Wow.
She's one of the reasons why they started coming up with all of those electronic trackers and tracker systems, because of her pulling that off. And everybody went, living in Boston at the time, everybody was just in shock. Who is this woman? Who is this woman that just won the marathon? I mean, she had the crown, she did all these things. And then as things started to go on, more and more people were like, I saw her on the subway. I saw her on the subway. I saw her here. And then they started going back over some footage of the crowds near the end of the race, and they see her come through the crowd on a video camera and into the race.
Wow.
So
Wow. Very creative.
Very creative. And why would somebody do that? You want to win a marathon that bad and not, part of the winning is that you did it.
Yeah, the whole process.
What's the I don't know. I guess I just don't know what's the thrill in that.
Maybe the attention that she was getting from women and having the fact. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on her? No. Okay. I know we're at 10:56, but I got a couple more. And it is only a couple, but are you guys all good on the time? Can you hang out for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So who is this lady?
Is that Lorena Bobbitt?
Yeah, it is. And so what's she best known for?
Cutting off her husband's penis.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Her story is that he came home and raped her, and so she took a knife, went in the bedroom, cut it off, threw it in a field, went to her friend's house, and her friend told her, you need to call the police. So she did, and they went and got him. but the news of her actions was a whirlwind of media attention. The media swept in, covered everything from the penis reattachment surgery to her trial. He denied any abuse. She was found not guilty for wounding her husband due to temporary insanity brought on by the trauma she'd endured. What's interesting is that some women's rights activists thought that the incident would lead to more awareness of domestic violence, but instead it became a tabloid sensation and a fodder for comedians. And so, I mean, you know, everybody made fun of it. It was the big make fun of thing, when in reality, she went on to be an advocate for victims of domestic violence. But the big thing was she was found not guilty, and I'm just not so sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think I agree that she couldn't have been guilty. You know, if I have a minute, I like to tell you I was ahead of her time. When I got married, my darling husband, who was the greatest human being I ever met, was notorious for his previous life. So I got this big scissor, put it on the table, and when he came home, I told him, I said, you will never again do what you used to do before, because, you know, I would, if it's somebody very pretty and young, I just take a nip. If it's older and ugly, I cut it, because that would be an insult to me. So don't ever think about it. And I still have scissors, you know.
You still have the scissors?
And I said, and the scissors, I bought it with your money, I mentioned. So,
wow.
So I was ahead of the time. I remember the story very well, because I said, I thought of it before. Didn't do it, but I thought of it
before she did.
Exactly.
Here's a little short video from a
Silent
news
scream
clip.
and holding myself, and I couldn't stop bleeding.
That was the moment John Bobbitt realized his penis was cut off. People talked about this story around the world.
This story was irresistible.
Now, John and Lorena Bobbitt will be the focus of a new Amazon 4-part documentary series called Lorena.
The interest level was huge.
Here's their real story. John was a Marine veteran. In the late 1980s, he met Lorena, an immigrant from Venezuela, at a Marine Corps ball. They got married in 1989. Lorena told Steve Harvey about their relationship.
I met John, and he was nice, and he was charming, and he was kind, and things started to change after, we got married. I fall into the same pattern there, the battered woman syndrome falls into, which is, the honeymoon, when he will promise me that he will change.
In 1993, Lorena Bobbitt cut off John's penis in the middle of the night. It was reattached after a 9.5-hour operation. John recently told ABC's Amy Roback.
When I sprung up and I was bleeding, I was applying pressure, that immediately I thought it was something out of a horror movie.
It was a nightmare, but it was real.
It turned into reality. Horrified, terrified. Thought I was going to die. That was it. I'm going to die.
The ensuing 8-day trial captivated the tabloids.
He kicked me. He told me that I told you not to cry. And he slapped me on my face. He pulled my hair. And he squeezed my face.
Lorena claimed her husband was raping her, which he denied.
Irresistible impulse, of course, is at the heart of this case, and whether the jury believed that Lorena Bobbitt had an irresistible impulse to do what she did.
Lorena was found not guilty of malicious wounding due to temporary insanity, something that could have put her behind bars for 20 years. John has denied ever being abusive to Lorena throughout their relationship. John went on to capitalize on the headline that made him famous, appearing on TV shows and starring in pornographic films.
John Wayne Bobbitt says that he is happy, that he's healthy, he's living in Las Vegas, he has a girlfriend who he loves, and he says life is good. I thought it was pretty phenomenal when he claimed that it didn't really hurt.
Today, Lorena is remarried and has a daughter. She appeared on The View to reflect on her story.
My story got lost in the tabloids, and it was just basically a big joke. And there's not a joke about domestic violence. It's nothing a joke about sexual assault, and that's why I'm here.
This is InsideEdition.com.
What do you think?
Well, I forgot. Sorry. I
go ahead.
forgot that she was. Okay. I just wanted to say that I forgot that she was from Venezuela. Since I'm a Latina, maybe it's a Latin thing to do that, to think that way at least.
That's possible.
It's
I guess.
It's possible because, like I said, 20 years earlier, I had the same thought.
Well,
Oh.
I don't know. I got two more for you. Whoops. Come on. Okay.
Oh, wow.
How about this one? Does she not look sweet?
She
That's
does.
Frank's younger years.
That was Cousin Elsie.
I was going to say, I know it's one of your relatives.
Yeah, it's Cousin Elsie. She was sweetie.
You probably don't know her name, or know her. Her name is Belle Gunnis. Notice there is no date that she died.
Maybe she's still alive.
No, they don't know when she died. Which thing do you think she's known as?
Madam?
Belle sounds like a madam to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me
Doesn't
too.
it?
Yeah, I go along with the madam.
Madam.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a murderer.
She's a murderer. And I have a different kind of video for this. I think you'll enjoy it. It is like 7 minutes, but it's kind of fun to watch. I'm not even going to go through this narrative because I want you to see this little video thing. I love the way they tell the story.
Hey there, TikTokers. This time around, we're going back to the terrifying world of serial killers to take a look at a very special case. Now, in case you didn't know, 95% of serial killers are men, but the women that can form the remaining 5% are still figures of pure evil as well. Among them was Belle Gunnis, one of the biggest murderers in the entire history of the United States, with about 50 victims attributed to her.
Wow.
Wow.
She was originally born in the small Norwegian village of Invicta on November 11, 1859, and was given the name Brynhild Paulsdatter Storset. Her parents were Paul Pedersen Storset, a construction worker, and Berit Olsdatter. Brynhild was the youngest of 8 siblings, and little is known about her first years. Only that in 1877 she ended up pregnant, and that during a local party a man attacked her by kicking her in the stomach. She lost her child due to the attack, but the aggressor was never prosecuted since he was part of a wealthy family. After that incident, her personality changed completely. The man died shortly after, apparently from a stomach cancer, and Brynhild worked for 3 years to pay for a boat trip to the United States. She settled in Chicago in 1881, changing her name to Belle Gunnis, and started working as a housemaid. In 1884, she married her first husband, Matt Sorensen, and together they set up a candy store. However, the business wasn't doing well, and a few months later it burned down due to a mysterious fire. Fortunately, they could claim the corresponding insurance money, which they used to buy a new house in Texas, which also burned down under strange circumstances in 1889. With the second indemnity they received, they bought a different house and moved there with their 4 children: Caroline, Axel, Myrtle, and Lucy. The first 2 died when they were very little, supposedly due to colitis, an illness that produces similar symptoms to poisoning. They both had life insurance, with Belle as beneficiary. In 1900, her husband also passed away. The first doctor that examined him suspected that he died due to strychnine poisoning, but since the deceased suffered from heart problems, it was ruled that he died due to heart failure and no autopsy was performed on him. This time around, the insurance money Belle received was even higher, and with it, she bought an entire ranch in Indiana. She married again in 1902 with Peter Gunnis, another Norwegian immigrant with daughters from his previous relationship. The younger one died inexplicably just 1 week after their wedding, and 6 months later, Peter himself perished. According to Belle, Peter was working in the barn when a grinding machine fell from a shelf on his head, killing him instantly. The neighbors started to get suspicious, and when Jenny, Peter's daughter, confessed to a classmate that Belle had killed him, Belle was prosecuted. However, before the judge, little Jenny denied having said anything, and Belle was absolved. Jenny was never seen again. Her stepmother said that she sent her to a boarding school, but later on it was discovered that Jenny was murdered and buried in the ranch. In 1906, Belle hired Ray Lamphere, a construction worker, to help her in the ranch, and soon after, they became lovers. At the same time, she published an ad on the newspaper looking for wealthy suitors who could be interested in marrying her and pay up the ranch mortgage. For 2 years, a series of suitors went to her house, carrying their entire savings with them, to then disappear without a trace. One of them was George Anderson, who first went to the ranch without money but promised to pay up the debt if Belle married him. She was an excellent host to George, offering him the biggest and most comfortable room in the ranch, as well as delicious dinners. However, George noticed something strange about Belle, and one night he woke up and saw her in front of him holding a candle, with a Machiavellian and sinister expression on her face. He didn't hesitate about getting out of there, and in the middle of the night, he took a train home. The suitors kept coming to the ranch, but besides Anderson, none of them were ever seen again. Meanwhile, Belle kept depositing huge amounts of cash in the bank regularly, as well as buying lots of empty sacks for her ranch. The neighbors affirmed to have seen her employee, Lamphere, digging holes all around the property. Lamphere started to feel jealous about the suitors of his landlady and lover and pressured her about it, resulting in him getting fired in 1908. Even then, Lamphere kept harassing her and insinuating things about her in public, and Bella reported him to the authorities. At the same time, one of the relatives of one of her victims started to track his whereabouts and went to Belle's ranch with the intention of investigating. For the first time, Belle the murderer was in trouble. She immediately went to see her lawyer to make a testament, claiming that Lamphere had threatened to set the ranch on fire with her and her family inside. She also paid up her mortgage, but didn't actually report Lamphere to the authorities. A few weeks later, the ranch was set on fire and everyone inside perished, including the children. However, the alleged scorched corpse of Belle could not be identified since it was decapitated and the head was never found. Lamphere was immediately captured and charged with arson and murder. The autopsy, supported by testimonials from the neighbors and Belle's clothing size, concluded that the physical measurements of the body they found didn't coincide. And it was demonstrated that the victim didn't die due to the fire, but was poisoned with strychnine. Shortly after, the bodies buried in the land around the ranch were discovered. The conclusion was that Belle managed to kill up to 49 people between 1896 and 1908. Including many of her children, her 2 husbands, about 30 workers in the farm, and a dozen suitors. Lamphere helped her get rid of the victims, but never confessed his role with the fire. And the identity of the scorched corpse was never known. Thus, it is very possible that Belle Gunness escaped to start a new life. And who knows if a new homicidal path as well.
What do you think? Was that creepy or what?
Yeah,
That was creepy.
Yes, creepy.
It's
Yes.
It was a great story. I like the way that they did it with the drawing.
Yeah.
And gosh, that's a lot of people. And you think, how on earth could somebody get away with that? But then when you start to look at the time that it was, and there was not what we have now, as far as figuring out stuff like that. People would have noticed now, I think, compared
She
to
was a
what-
career woman.
She was a career woman. That's for darn sure.
A strange career, but a career woman.
I have one more for you. You ready? Last one. This lady right here. Does she look familiar to you? I think she
That's
might be
Aunt
one of
Jenny.
Faye's relatives. I knew it.
Yeah, that's Aunt Jenny.
Okay. Does anybody recognize the face from the news or anything? Okay.
She wasn't a mistress to politicians.
Marilyn Hartman.
Marilyn Hartman. What do you think she's known for?
1951.
She's a stowaway.
Who said that?
Pam.
Pam said that. I think Pam remembers her now, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, she's a stowaway. Now, this story really kind of blows my mind that she could do this. She's known as a serial stowaway. She's an American woman known for stowing away on more than 20 commercial flights since 2014. Although she admits it's more like 30. She's homeless, believes in a worldwide conspiracy operating with permission of Barack Obama, and has spent the last that the conspiracy has been harassing her, and it triggers her fight or flight response that compels her to get on a plane and go away. And there's two little short news clips about it. Well, one's a news clip and one's actually her telling her story.
The government shutdown has prevented TSA officials from answering questions about serial stowaway Marilyn Hartman. But details of how she flew to London without a ticket or passport are emerging, and security experts call them alarming. Here's CBS 2's Dana Kozlov with how she did it.
Wow. 66-year-old Marilyn Hartman has spent years giving airport security the slip, then promising not to do it again.
It was stupid, and it is something I don't want to repeat.
But last week, she broke that promise and flew from O'Hare to London before being caught.
How can the system keep failing over and over and over again?
Unbelievable, Flying Magazine's Rob Marks says, but prosecutors say it's true and began January 14th around 2 p.m. when Hartman is seen on security tape in Terminal 3. They say she hides her face with her hair and sneaks by TSA agents checking passengers. Hartman then tries boarding a flight to Connecticut, but an agent tells her to sit down. Later, prosecutors say she's seen getting on a shuttle bus to Terminal 5 without the required boarding pass or passport. Officials believe she spent the night in Terminal 5 and went to the British Airways gate the next day, January 15th, and slipped by a gate agent to board Flight 294 to London. Do you think her appearance made a difference in terms of her maybe being able to slip by both the TSA agent and a gate agent?
I'm thinking it probably did. She wouldn't appear to be a threatening person, wouldn't appear to be someone that you would be considered to be a high-risk passenger.
CBS 2 security expert Ross Rice says Hartman doesn't fit the profile of someone who might do harm. He adds certain types of profiling are necessary law enforcement tools. He also believes security procedures at every level need review. Robin Erica, she's currently being held at the Cook County Jail.
And what's her story after that, assuming that she gets out? Any idea?
Well, she'll have some monitoring, and she's been ordered to, again, receive some psychiatric counseling.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Isn't she the one that, okay.
No, go ahead. Tell me.
It seems like I just read about her where she had like electronic monitoring, but she ended up back at Chicago again and was trying to get on a plane and they detained her. I think I read that just recently, like the last couple of weeks.
You might have. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I recall something like that too, Pam.
Yeah. I have to look it up.
Yeah. This is just a short recording of her on the phone telling her story.
The thing I've got to tell you, I have never been able to board a plane by myself. I was always let through. And I want to get my side of the story out. As amazing as that sounds,
what do you mean let through?
I mean, I was able to go through the security line without a boarding pass.
How many times do you think you've done that?
At least 30 times. At least. I was able to go to an airport and fly out. That's where it sounds crazy, where someone could say, well, she has a mental illness. And I'm prepared for any comments that may be made about me at this point.
What was the longest flight you've ever taken?
The first time I was able to get through, I flew to Copenhagen. They sent me back on a ticket to Trenton, New Jersey, and I had to find my way back to Chicago. The second time I flew into Paris, and that was in the year of 2002. I landed there as they were finishing the Christmas holidays. They kept me for about 31 days, and then they flew me back to the United States. When I took the plane ride, I wasn't happy. I wasn't, I'm going here or there. I was actually in a depressed state of mind. So, yeah.
And you were trying to get out or trying to get away?
Actually, not so much out or getting away. It's just that I felt pressure, and then I thought, and then I went to the airport. But,
so, I mean, it was almost like you literally were feeling emotionally a fight or flight, and you literally took a flight.
That is literally what happened, the fight or flight syndrome. And I took it to the exact, wording of that. That's definitely a point to be made. And the only reason why I would agree to an interview is when I knew that I would no longer engage in that behavior, when I thought, I'm on this medication, and I don't want to do this anymore, and I want to apologize for the interruptions and everything that resulted from that.
Yeah, she was just rearrested on yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Trying to leave. She left the facility where she was being electronically monitored and then arrested at the Chicago airport again and put county jail.
Wow.
What makes this so shocking to me is she said she started in 2002, right after, like a year later from 9/11, when they went through all of this. And I mean, all of us who've been on a plane and everything knows how going through security and like all of the, I'm just sitting here as she's talking, thinking of all the places I have to go to show the boarding pass before you even get on a plane. Like, that's
I know.
Yeah.
It was very creative.
Yes.
It was creative. But my thing is exactly what Kristen said. I'm sure she has some mental issues. It's kind of obvious. But the fact that she was able to actually be successful at this 30 times since 2002 is very alarming when it comes to our safety. And notice that every time she gets caught, it's mostly in the other countries. It's not here. They caught her in Copenhagen, they sent her back. They caught her in Paris, they sent her back.
Which is crazy, because since 2001, when they really increased security, I can think of several places that I've gone, and I don't know how in the world she got past security. And even if she did get past security, how did she get on the plane? Because they scan every ticket. And I mean, I guess she just used that little old lady routine.
She hides in plain sight.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is. Anyway, so anybody have anything else about Miss Marilyn?
Wow.
Well, those are all the people we talked about this morning. It was I don't know about you guys, but I really had a blast with this.
Yes, this was awesome.
Yes,
Thank you.
right.
This was great.
It was.
Maybe
really cool.
next time you'll go further back in history. You skip one of my favorites.
Oh, which one?
The woman who killed Marat during the French Revolution.
Oh, yeah. I stuck with the American ones because I knew I only had so much time. So I kind of
next time maybe you do more of an international type of thing, and then make sure that you include Charlotte Corday. She was amazing.
That's Patty Hearst. She looks just like that McVie lady. I can't think of her name, but she was a singer and all. But she looks just like her.
Yeah.
Didn't Blanche Taylor Moore actually kill the first one she was married to?
I think
Blanche Taylor Moore, who worked at the Kroger over across from Forsyth Tech, and then her next one was in the hospital with arsenic poisoning, and they found out he was being poisoned by arsenic, and he survived. But her husband before that actually died, and they didn't suspect anything. She worked in the deli.
Oh my gosh,
Blanche
that's scary.
Taylor Moore.
Yes, I was told about that one, and I was going to go dig her up, but I was like, oh my gosh, I already have 12 people, and I had to cut. I actually cut some out of this because there was just we could have done this for weeks.
This was fantastic.
Yeah,
I love our local celebrity.
Yeah.
Didn't have to work today.
Yeah.
This was great.
I'm glad
Very
you
nice.
enjoyed it, and I had a lot of fun putting it together. And
great
we
job.
should definitely do some other stuff. Next Wednesday, we're going to do part 2, but we're going to do obscure women in American history. Some people you never heard of, maybe just it won't be